toward outcomes. This is nice engineering-based model of change. So our current state of classroom culture is something that we wanted to shift to something that reflected our values and things that would push us as teachers and professionals. But we also wanted to really give credit to some of the strategies and factors that influence that change. So we talked about things like faculty professional development, and something that the TLC has offered us space to have and to develop. Setting up new structures within our practices and within our classrooms. Enhancing student participation was core to all of our projects. And then also developing team-based exercises within our classroom practices were the strategies that we employ to move from this current state of classroom culture to a stronger sense of outcomes, which we can talk about in just a second. But we also wanted to give some credence to the factors that resist that sort of change. So time, right, being a huge one. How do we find the time to make this change happen? Institutional norms and normative institutional structures. And then resistance to change, both internal and external. And we acknowledge the internal within ourselves too. But hinging from that piece of internal resistance, one thing that we both cited is the courage and risk-taking that we developed along this semester being teaching scholars to take those risks within our practice, to do things that were novel and toward developing student professional development, and how that courage and risk-taking also adhered strongly to this overarching sense of identity development that we wanted to move toward, both for our students, but certainly also for us. For instance, I was talking as a faculty in education about how it's often assumed that we have expertise in it, which we do, in education and teaching, but that by virtue of that, we don't necessarily get the professional development opportunities. We feel like we're sometimes overlooking that. So professional skill development becomes a huge piece of that for us in terms of developing identity. And it pushed us to be eager to learn how to develop and advance our own practices. And yeah, also transforming our own professional identities as being part of that. So all of this was really about how do we move from where we are in our classroom practices, acknowledging the strategies and forces that push on and push down on their current state toward some greater sense of a changing culture.
Started talking, we were focused very much on what the TLC and what that has allowed us to do and to experience. So lots of interaction and conversation with colleagues, including across colleges, developing relationships leading to ongoing work, creating community with common interest in teaching, new perspectives on material familiar to us. So we felt like we started out with this very rich center, and then continuing, we're thinking, okay, no, how do we put the students in the diagram? So we feel like, in so many ways, the students also form communities, just like we have a community here. And we feel like that was done in a variety of ways, through active learning, teamwork and collaboration, problem solving, engaged learning, analysis, comprehension, creative thinking, and asking questions. And many of us did break the students up into small groups. And I also feel like through doing that, not only were they more active learners, but they also created relationships with each other that may be ongoing. And then, of course, there's always two-way feedback between the faculty and the students as well. So information is going back and forth both ways. Student advisors would provide feedback and an additional connection. Students are doing writing, we're giving writing feedback. New ideas are going both ways, motivation, critical thinking, and so forth. So I feel like, just to summarize, the TLC is really a hub where we get renewed or reinvigorated, but then that really reaches out to the students. But in this model, then the students also teach us what works well.
Our table conversation actually really emphasized process more than outcomes, and we really, Frederica came up with this nice title for our word quilt, sort of like a word cloud that is quilt, sort of knitting things together, mixing a lot of metaphors here. But it was like all the things we thought about, the things we talked about, we're all working on but don't feel finished, and that have a lot of other stuff going on, but things that we've been thinking about a lot this semester through the work we've been doing and things we learned from each other in our conversations. And as you can see, all the question marks about all the things that we have more work to do and so forth.
Can you tell us some of those that are on the quilt?
Oh, the words?
Yes.
Yeah, sure. Well, okay, so some of them are like education, vision, disability, access, games, so different actual things we were doing or things we were thinking about, equity and inclusion, developing a community of learning, thinking about how we connect to the university's mission, challenges of keeping students as, learning from students as well as teaching them, how do we think about faculty development in a broad sense, and our role in it, and getting people to do it. And we'll stay up here so you can come back out.
The other groups, we came from different places. We had very, very different project, I guess just project, not necessarily outcomes, but I guess goals and purposes. But much like other people have already said, we saw a thread in terms of overlapping concepts. So we put in the middle the teaching scholars. We could actually put the general, because we had a master teacher scholar with us as well. But overall, we kind of had a focus on, number one is curriculum design. So looking at assessments, activities, thinking about meaning, connecting to students, et cetera, faculty collaboration and designing all the different components. So that was an overlapping petal of our flower. And then also we thought about the integration and alignment. So one of the projects focused on curriculum mapping across the whole program courses. And we had overlap with a couple of the other groups as well. Thinking about learning outcomes and then mentoring, both in my particular case, mentoring future teachers and then others, future engineers, et cetera. And then professional preparation, thinking about all this professional preparation and collaboration with colleagues, as well as helping our students with that professional aspect of preparation. And all this, the stem of our flower, I forgot to mention, meaningful and or evidence-based teaching was at the stem, and then all the petals kind of stemmed off of our work as scholars.
So, fundamentally, we were having an entire conversation about what we were going to do and everything, and what really came out of it was that we all have extremely different backgrounds sitting at this table. But we're all sitting at a table where we actually realize that we have a lot more in common than we have different when it comes to teaching, especially with what we've been doing here at TLC. So we kind of wanted to highlight that TLC actually brought all of us with different backgrounds, different ideas together, and let us see how much we have in common and how much we can actually progress these things we have in common through teaching with each other. So if he wants to go over what some of these actually are.
Yeah, so just to highlight the 4 different disciplines and some of the specific tools that we used over the course of being in the program, and also what we did was we highlighted one of the common things that we all did, and it's just this organic way of the process of teaching and learning. So for example, in public health, I was doing mostly online, and I used the Voicer and Padlet. And through discussion, I learned with John that we also both did flipped classroom, although he was in class and I was online. So this is where we both connected. And that, and John did mostly his videos using Final Cut software and poll everywhere, and his focus on design, and he had a wet lab. So these are his specific tools, but we also wanted to highlight these were softwares and tools that anyone could use if you want to adapt. Where special ed, Michelle here. So she teaches teachers about teaching, and she focuses on teaching teachers. Also, she uses software for Cahoots, and that me and her connected because we're both do graduate levels. But John and Michelle and I, we all connected because we do group work and we do simulation work. And with Tarina, she teaches in anthropology. She uses Echo 360. She does Kahoot and also film and photos, so this is her specialty. But she also connected with Michelle because they both do community engagement and field work, whereas we didn't, so this is their connection. But what was very interesting was that we all connected here in the middle. And
So our main connection of where we all did everything together was one, TLC. Thank you for that, all of you at TLC. But the next thing was our use of technology. The fact that we were focusing on outcome-based learning rather than goal-based learning. We allowed our students to make actual choices in our classrooms, or we'll continue to allow our students to make actual choices. And then peer engagement overall, just having the students get engaged and realize that they're peers and work together.
We didn't really know how to start, and we didn't know really how to end it either, but I took a play out of my 5-year-old son's playbook. We started to talk about things, and then I started asking why to everything that was said. And then when I would get the answer to that, I would ask why again, and thank you to my colleagues for not getting annoyed with me. What we started to get to after asking why the second or third time was, why is it that we want to do the things that we were doing here, each of us at the table? What is it that brought us here? Ultimately, what is the point for trying to improve teaching methods or to try to have students apply theory or methodology in a certain way? And so what we have on the ends of our bridges, and this bridge is kind of a loop. It's a two-way bridge here. We have on the ends knowledge and competence. Knowledge being the starting point. It's not the end point. We're not teaching, giving a whole bunch of knowledge, but hopefully transforming the way people think about things and resulting in competence, which then we hope will inform the creation of new knowledge, right? And as the pillars of these, the things that are upholding the suspension of these things, two of them would be deliberative methodology, and that's one of the things we're trying to hone here, learn methodology and be more deliberate in our use of it, and coupling that with guided application, not being the sage or the master of knowledge, but really trying to facilitate learning, sometimes by accident.
Lot about active learning, and it's something that's been talked about a lot over the term. It's certainly a really popular topic. So as we sat, we all came from different backgrounds, and we either talked about issues we had with employing some strategies for active learning in our courses or the desire to do it in future courses. And so what we did was we said, what does active learning mean to you? And we just sort of came up with different words or different phrases, and we color-coded them based on everything that's in red are sort of fears that stop you from maybe employing some of these strategies. So where to start, how to start, if you want to change the way that you're teaching. Big fear, what if your students don't like it? So we talked about some feedback that we had gotten with some of the strategies that we had tried where maybe students didn't like the things we were doing. What's the faculty role and what happens to faculty in some of these methods of teaching. We have where do you start twice. I said that already. Okay, so obviously, where do you start's a big one. So we put it and so then what's in yellow are challenges. So things maybe that don't prevent you from starting, but might slow you down. Certainly, employing some of these strategies, flipping the classroom, doing TBLs, it takes a lot of time. And so time is something that's a challenge. So we have language represented on our table, we have classes in math, and then anatomy. So how is it different for different classes? One of the things we talked about was it doesn't work for everything. And so in order to make sure that students will like it or will engage and participate, we need to choose the activities really thoughtfully. So attendance is certainly a challenge. If your students aren't there, then active learning is not going to work. And they have to participate. So how do you cold call them out? Do you do things that are uncomfortable? Again, those are all challenges. And then we only have 2 things in green, but they're 2 really big, important ones for reasons why you would do this would be it's really student focused. So that's where the focus should be, not on us as the teachers, but on students. That's something I learned a lot in this past personally term. And then engagement, that really hopefully it does engage our students so that we can get them to participate, then they are much, much more engaged in what we're doing.
Amongst the 5 of us, we talked about big ideas that we saw amongst all of our experiences. So the first one that we talked about is the amount of trust that students place in us. They put their trust in us to provide a learning environment, for it to be safe, for us to have the knowledge and expertise in teaching. And by being part of TLC, it's one angle that we can further our ability to teach students in a trusting environment. We also talked about TLC being an opportunity to collaborate, and in that collaboration, having some risk-taking as well. So sharing our ideas, learning from one another, that will enhance our learning as instructors. And it was really neat. Natasha presented a TLC event, and we found out that I had actually incorporated one of the ideas that she had shared, so we were able to talk about that as well.
And then this one's about relevance, making learning relevant, and really trying to capitalize on the fact that students learn better when they can take the material and connect it to some aspect of who they are, or their lives, their experience, or their soon-to-be experiences. So, and all of us talked about ways in which we do that in our respective different classes. And then finally, self-reflection. That if we're going to do this work, we often talk about our students being more self-reflective, but we as instructors, as faculty members, need to be self-reflective and think through what are we doing, why are we doing it, and participating in the TLC this year allowed us to gauge a more self-reflective practice around our teaching, which we hope in turn has made all of us a little bit better at what we're doing.
We didn't reflect on our work as actual TLC participants, we reflected on our teaching. What we decided to do was focus on ways to get students to break free from text, particularly with grad students, but not only with grad students. It seems like they read text, they produce text. They read text, they produce text. So we thought, how can we inspire them with assignments that require them to gather and share knowledge in non-textual ways? So that's why we left and we started taking photos around campus. These are our members, and so maybe the group members want to talk about what photos represent.
This one is about carefully examining your physical environment, as far as I can go. To fix, breaking free from the traditional fixed classroom with a lecture at its front. This is the experiential learning that has to do with.
Are you familiar with the Latino Cultural Center? They have this learning garden. If you're not, ask to get a free tour, but it's absolutely amazing. And it's super, super hands-on experiential learning.
A traditional form of communication that no one uses anymore.
This is students engaged with technology. So they're on their computers, uploading everything that students could just dump interviews, and so they write text by an author. Here's an interview that somebody conducted of the author. Boom, put that on. It's sort of like a Tumblr reader or even a Pinterest, right? All kinds of different visual artifacts. Again, text. We're trying to move away from the traditional idea. This was more a room you can work with because the chairs are mobile, but still it's got the teacher in the front and sort of the idea of dictating knowledge to students. This is that garden again. Again, trying to move away from the text and get to other things. More and more text. And then here's us. And I think that's it. Yeah.
My name is Yao, and I'm going to show you my know-how. This is going to impact us through community of practice. We learn from each other like a sponge while enjoying free lunch. We're now at this juncture that needs to change our culture.
My name is Ann, and I said, yes, I can, to using Kahoot to help students execute. I was full of hesitation to use gamification. It's proven that interactivity counteracts passivity.
Online tests to get their best. Checking prerequisite mastery to avoid a catastrophe. To counter copying, use randomizing. Raising the floor and trying not to bore.
My name is Zheng Yu, and I'm fully equipped after my TLC project. My classroom is flipped.
A pony is just a miniature horse. My name is Runjit, and I taught a brand new course. Tony Cordy was my mentor. I took my class to the writing centaur. I sat in on Tony's class all semester long, and that brings us to the end of our song.